We spent some time collecting data, right? Help me out. We were in 6 groups. What did we collect? What was the kind of data we were looking at?
Hair length.
Hair length, thank you very much. That was group 1. Groups 2 and 3, you were doing stuff together. What were you doing?
Heart rate.
Heart rate and?
Breathe.
So lung capacity is what we're looking at, right? That was 1, 2, and 3.
How many siblings?
Group 4 was looking at siblings and family structure. Group 5 had, where's Jacob? It was hands and what was the substitute? Shoulder breadth, right. And then group 6.
Ruler, drop test, and reaction.
Reaction time, that's right. So they were using, you did the stopwatch thing, didn't you? Good, okay. So you now have all of this data, and then what we started on, and we're going to finish today, was taking that data to try and answer this question. Am I normal? And we need to do a bit of analysis, right? Okay. So for that reason, I wanted to call you back to something you were looking at earlier in the year, and that's what this table is about. Most of it will be, hopefully, ringing a little bit of a bell, right? We looked at 3 main ways of taking a big group of data and then boiling it down, distilling it into a single number. So you could say this group is kind of all like this, and we had 3 of them. We called them measures of central tendency. That was a big important phrase. There were 3 of them, and they all started with the letter M. Do you remember what they were? We've looked at some of them before. We looked at the one we usually call the average. What's the other special name for the average?
Mean.
The mean. Very good. Okay. So the mean was the first one. Okay. What's another one? The median. And then I heard another one. The mode. Very good. Okay. Now these are all 3 measures of central tendency. Okay. Now let's just try and remember, because this was a long time ago. What are these, Abby? What do they actually mean, right? I didn't mean that. What's the definition for each one? For instance, how do you calculate the mean? Yeah, Lucas.
The mean's the average.
Okay, good. So you're going to add up all of the scores you've got, and then you...
By the amount of numbers there are.
Fantastic. So if you've got 27 people in the class, you add up all 27 people's heights and you divide by 27, and that's what the average is, okay? These are quite different. How do you find the mean of a set of scores? Okay, very good. So the middle. So in order to know what the middle is, you have to have them in an order, don't you? And we looked at how to sort our data before using Excel, right? So then you look and you count and you make sure, okay, out of 27, you'd pick, who would be the middle one out of 27? It's a bit of a funny number, isn't it? 13?
No.
13. Let's think about that. You want, if you've got 27 people, right? 27 people, you want to split half above, half below, and there'll be one person right in the middle, right? So I'm guessing you want 13 people above, 13 people below, so that would mean it would be the 14th person, okay? So that's the median. There's a question about that in the Cat 2, if you remember, trying to work out the exact order. Anyhow, that's what we need to do. Last one, do you remember what we made? Good, most common, right? Okay, so these are what the measures were. This is how you find them, right? Now, what I want us to think about this morning, and we're going to use the data that you've got, is when you compare these, right? Each measure has its own advantage and disadvantage, or plural, as you'll see in a second, right? So depending on the kinds of data you've got, we all have different kinds of data, that will lean you towards using one of these kinds. Okay, does that make sense? So, let's think about this really quickly, because again, we knew all this before, this is what's kind of new today, all right? So, what's great about the average, okay? I actually have I want you to pull up your data there, right? You had a look at hair length and how long you could hold your breath and all those kinds of things. You might remember, if all you do is select all your data, it actually works this out for you automatically, and it comes up down the bottom, okay? So, I happen to know he's got this open. Darcy, you've got your hair lengths there, right? Can you select all of your range of data, all the numbers, and what does it give you? What does it calculate? You got a hair length average there?
No.
Down the bottom, in the corner.
I know mine too.
Have you got yours?
Yeah.
Yours was siblings, right?
1, 2.5.
Okay, hold on.
1.25.
This was siblings. The mean was 1.25.
2.5.
Okay, I'll come back to that in a second. Hair length?
It was 31.5.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's right. It rings a bell. Good. Okay, so I'll come back to the siblings in a second. When you've got these means, right, the great thing about a mean, this is its key advantage, right, is it takes all of the data, every single piece of data, right? It takes everything into account. It doesn't miss any of them, which is why, if, for example, what you do right now in your spreadsheet is you just select all of the data except for one, right? Like maybe you leave off the person on the bottom, which I think was me in most cases, right? If you take off just a single person, the mean will change, okay? Or if you add a single piece of data, so long as it's not average, again, your mean will change, okay? So it takes everything into account, that's fine. But there's a problem, And I'm going to show you with a bit of different data because I'm not sure what kinds of information you actually have. I'm going to show you an example, okay? So, Darcy, under here in this green little box, I've got the average salary, right? Do you remember what's the name of the formula that you used to work out the average? Not a trick question. Start with an equals. What word am I going to put in?
Average.
It's average. Very good. Okay, so there you go. Now, from here, I could name all of these cells, or I could use my mouse and I could select them. But in a second, as you can probably see by the design of this spreadsheet, they're all just going to be in this B column, right? Okay, so I have there's a bit of a shortcut that Excel uses to just say everything in a column. You just say B:B. Right? So you can see what it's done. It recognizes it, that's how it colors it, right? Everything in this column, whatever I put in there, close my bracket, it's going to give me the average, okay? Now, an error is going to come in a second. I want to show it to you, and I want you to try and work out what's happening by remembering what the definition of an average is, okay? Ready? Watch. So this is an error, right? That's what the hashtag means, right? What do you think it means, Jade?
Is it because it took in the actual word salary as well?
Okay, so the first suggestion might be, okay, hold on. There's not a number up there, right? So maybe it's trying to work something out, calculate something, and that's why there's a problem. There's an easy way to work out if that's the issue, right? Just go up there and delete it. Didn't fix it, did it? So that was a good suggestion, but in this particular case, happened not to be the answer. So Per, you want to give us another suggestion?
That's nothing to work with.
Aha, okay, so at the moment I haven't put any salaries in. There's no data. Why do you think that would give? Read it, have a look. What do you think this error means?
There's nothing to divide by.
Ah, okay. No data, nothing to divide by. More specifically, right? How did we say, Tom, I think it was you, who said, how do you work out the average? You add up everything, right? And then you divide by how many people or how many pieces of data you've got. And how many pieces of data do I have? None. So it's trying to divide by 0, so that's why it breaks. Okay, but we can fix this. That's all right. Let's say we've got a few salaries and I have some data, right? So Maya earns $14,000, perhaps. Okay, congratulations. Abby earns, $500 less. I docked and paid because, she was talking before. So, Courtney, I'll put in a few other figures here.
17.
I'll be generous. Okay.
Yeah.
Amy's not here today, so I cut her salary. Jacob's also not here today, so I cut her salary. Ash, I'll give you that. Darcy has to pay like a toll tax or something like that, so sorry buddy. Alright, so, what have we got so far? If I just undo through here, right, you might notice that because Excel's doing the calculations for you automatically, can you see what's happening to the average? Every time you add a new piece of data, it adjusts, right? Yes, it changes. But what I didn't mention is that the last two employees, for me, are important employees. That's why they're at the bottom of this. Okay. Connor here is the CEO of the company, right? So he actually earns substantially more. So that's his salary right there. Okay. Not bad, especially compared to the rest of the peons, right? But there's one more person who's perhaps even more important. You got your CEO here, and this is me paying you back for making you the shortest person in the class. So there's the CFO. Does anyone know what a CFO is? CFO, what does it stand for?
Chief Financial Officer.
Chief Financial Officer, very good.
You don't even know what you're doing yet.
Chloe, do you mind waiting for me outside?
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Samimi over there, our Chief Financial Officer, is very important. In this regard, maybe even more important than CEO, because he holds the purse strings, right? So he decides, and I don't know if he's going to get fired after this, he decides to make himself get paid even more in this year, because he has the power, right? All right, now let's just have a look at what just happened. Again, every time I put in a little new piece of data, the average, it changed. Let me rewind, because you might not have caught what happened, right? Go back 2 steps. So the average there, the mean is $14,000. That makes sense, doesn't it? You look at these numbers, $14,000 does seem pretty average. It represents this group of people pretty well, okay? But then you add in CEO, and the average rises, right? In fact, the average is now substantially over all of these normal employees' salaries. And if I add in our last employee there, it's way over. It's almost double, right? What most of these people have. So what's happened? What's been our problem? What do you call this kind of thing? Is that a meaningful average now?
No.
It's not, is it? In fact, there's not even a person who earns anywhere close to this. You're either way below or you're way above. Okay? So this happens to not be a very useful way to do it. These are called outliers. Right? Now, I've given you an example of outliers who are above the average, okay? And so they've thrown the average out, but you can have outliers the other way, same idea, right? This is the disadvantage to working out a mean. Outliers are going to cause you trouble, right? In fact, these are kind of 2 sides of the same coin, right? Because the mean takes everything into account, it'll take outliers into account, which can cause you problems like this, okay? Enter the median, okay? The median's the middle score, okay? Now, I won't make you turn the screen again, but you guys can do this on your data, whether it's hair length or lung capacity or whatever. We worked out average, right? And our formula for it was this, right? Equals, here's how you worked out your averages, right? Average, and then you opened your brackets, and you put in the right cells there. And everyone's got different cells, which is why I'm not putting in any particular data here. To work out the median, just take a guess. What do you think is the name of the function for the median? Median. Very good. Okay, so again, right, you write your function out and then you put in, now where are the cells that you're using for your data? Okay, and it will spit out for you a median. Now I'm just really quickly going to show you what it is here on this data. Median. Okay, so have a look at that. Now this is kind of interesting, right? I won't dwell on this because we've looked at medians before. Who is earning $14,250? Who's earning $14,250? Nathan?
There's equal pay with 14,000, 14,500, so it's dividing. I mean, it's going half.
Okay, so just to come back to the answer to the question, no one specifically is earning that exact amount of money, but it's halfway between. Can you see who's in halfway between? Looks to me like it's halfway between Ash and Maya, right? So there, these either sides of the middle, and 14,250 is right there, okay? So here's the great thing, right? You've got this problem of outliers here with the mean, right? But the median, he doesn't worry about the outliers, okay? It ignores outliers. That's the advantage here. And I'll prove it to you. Let's suppose that that CFO goes mad crazy with power, even more than he already has, right? And he decides to double his pay, okay? 190,000. Is that right? That's better. What happened to the median? Nothing happened to the median. Let me just change it again, just to confirm, right? It didn't move anywhere. Why not? When we changed numbers, the mean changed every single time. Why didn't the median? Yeah.
Because either way, I'm still at the top.
That's right. He's still number one, right? And perhaps more importantly, the middle is still the middle, wherever it was, which was between Maya and Ash, right? So the top, he can take himself as far as he wants, right? Or if we had someone who was a low outlier, same deal, it won't change the middle, okay? All right, so there you go. That's the main advantage here. Now, unfortunately, you don't usually get to take a spreadsheet into an exam with you, right? So we talked about this before. How would you work out the median if I just printed this out and gave it to you? What would you have to do? You'd have to count, wouldn't you? Number one, you'd have to get it into order, and then you'd have to count. And that takes a while. It's time consuming. So that's kind of your main disadvantage there.